The picture. They say a picture speaks 1,000 words. Indeed, 1,000 words are spoken through a picture. There is something powerful to be said about a moment in time that is captured to stand the test of time. There is something powerful to be said about a moment in time that is captured to endure the pains, the sorrows, the joys, and celebrations within this life. A picture, the picture, pictures. They come to be during life's most important happenings: a child's birth, baptisms, sporting events, graduations, weddings, promotions, anniversaries. The list goes on and on. Pictures put meaning to events that we want to hold on to for all of eternity. I am the one who snaps the picture. I am the one who captures the moment. I am the one who makes time stand still in an instant. I am the one who produces a memory from motion. I am a photographer. My passion in life is to create a collage of moments, memories, and life events for you to hold on to and to cherish. There is something that stirs my soul, sets my soul on fire in regards to the chase for the picture. I have taken thousands upon thousands upon thousands of pictures. I have taken pictures for any event and happening imaginable. I have traveled the world to take pictures, to capture moments. And yet, the picture is still to come. The picture. That one picture that will change the world. The picture that will change perception, perspective, and shift the minds of those who encounter it. I am chasing the picture, the perfect picture. The picture that completes my journey, my travels, and my dreams. I am the picture. And with that being read, I want to welcome you back to the 127 Fit podcast. Today's guest is a freelance sports photographer, storyteller, full-time Lululemon educator, and social media lead for Denver, Colorado. And finally, she is the Jane of all trades. Today's guest is Lisa Haefner. Lisa, I want to welcome you to the 127 Fit podcast.
Hi, Quentin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Lisa, we're going to jump right into a warm-up. And the first question that I have for you today is, do you have a morning routine, and how do you kind of start each day?
My mornings start with coffee.
Cool.
I actually started.
That's a good start.
I just normally get up between 7 and 7:30 in the morning with my boyfriend. And he has to go to work pretty quickly early in the morning. And on days I get to sleep in a little depending on when I'm starting it. I just kind of wake up with him. Sometimes we'll do a little meditation, about 5-10 minutes. Usually through Oak meditation app as one of my favorites. And then make some coffee, and lately I've been following RP Strength, so I have to start my morning shake macros to get going, just to get me started for my day.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Now, RP Strength, like I know I follow them on Instagram and everything. What's something that you've found value in kind of their programming and things like that?
The structure. I think it's something that I just started, so I'm only like a week in, really.
No, that's cool.
But I really enjoy the structure. I get so busy with my day that I tend to forget to eat.
Right, yeah.
And this is something that tells me when, where, how much, how to consume the right things to fuel me. So that's something that I'm learning.
So are they... do they have like programming for like strength training and stuff like that, and then also the nutrition, or is it just nutrition? Or?
They do both, but they just released an app, which is what I'm working with, as opposed to doing one-on-one with one of their coaches.
Okay, cool.
This was just kind of like a no-risk or low-risk option to see how I liked it.
Very cool.
It's customized. I answer lots of questions, and then every week they kind of determine my macros for every meal of every day.
So their approach then to nutrition is kind of like the macro counting and stuff like that?
Yes, very scientific approach.
Yeah, I know. I think that the head guy of that is Mike Israel or something like that. I follow him on Instagram, and I know like he's definitely like a science guy.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. Now, if you don't mind me asking a little bit more about that, Do they like have you like weighing your food and measuring
Oh,
all
yeah.
that? Or
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
So it's pretty dialed
Yes,
in, huh?
a little bit more math than I would like, but
Yeah.
you know, it's fine.
Yeah. Well, and I know for myself, like competing in bodybuilding and things
Sure.
like that, still to this day I'll weigh out like my meat and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But from kind of just my understanding with different people when it comes to nutrition and counting the macros, like once you kind of get like that baseline macros and kind of understand just kind of eyeballing like what a cup is or what 4 ounces is, then you can kind of loosen the reins. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of programs in the beginning, they try to keep it
really
strictness because most people are like, oh, you know, this is 4 ounces of chicken breast when it's actually like 12 or something.
Exactly.
You know? So
yeah,
I'm sure it'll get a little bit looser.
Yeah, my idea of the proper portion of peanut butter turns out is not as accurate as I would like it to be.
Oh yeah, I need a whole sit down and eat a whole jar of peanut butter. That's for sure.
Exactly. So very eye opening so far.
Yeah.
I'm like on day 4. So.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. I'm glad that you started because I'm sure it'll give you the results that you want. So all right, so let's jump into the second question here,
Sure.
Lisa. Is there a favorite book that you have, or maybe a book that you like to gift often?
Yeah, actually, a former podcast guest of yours, Amy Morrison, introduced me to the book Brain Rules.
Cool.
And that is what I am about halfway through right now, and I find it absolutely fascinating. I can't put it down. It's really helping you understand how the brain functions in regards to sleep, physical activity, and stress. And that is also pretty eye-opening on just like how much of your day really affects how your brain works and how you're learning. And it's really teaching me a lot.
Cool.
So.
Yeah, that's a book that I'm going to check out because that sounds fascinating. That sounds really good. So is there a favorite quote or mantra that has been maybe a powerful influence in your life at some point or maybe even up to this day?
Yeah, it's actually one that I got from my mom.
Okay.
It's forward motion. Forward motion.
And it kind of, I mean, obviously you probably kind of understand that on our side, but for you, what does that mean?
It's about no matter what is going on in your life, to keep looking forward because there's always going to be a light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely, yeah.
And just to take it one day at a time to get where you want to go.
Cool, beautiful, yeah, and that's something I found in my life personally is that forward motion, and then that forward motion creates momentum, and momentum in life is super powerful. So that's a beautiful quote. So the final question for the warm up is favorite or most listened to podcasts, and if you have more than one, feel free to share them.
Oh, right now it'd be Tim Ferriss.
Okay, yep.
My boyfriend introduced me to a lot of podcasts, but Tim Ferriss would be probably my most listened to.
Okay, cool.
I also really enjoy Joe Rogan on and off.
Yep.
What I like about Joe Rogan is that he will interview anyone.
Absolutely.
And he really knows how to get people to just go off the rails and really dig into who they are, what they do. And he's just hilarious.
Smoke a little weed before and get them loose, right?
Get people to loosen up. And, like no one is off limits.
Yeah,
Nothing is off limits.
For sure.
And I'm always so fascinated with people and what makes people tick and think. And I think those two really know how to really dive deep.
For sure.
Into figuring out who that person is and how their story can help others.
Yes. Have you read any of Tim Ferriss's books by chance?
All except the 4-Hour Chef is the only one I haven't read.
Cool. Yeah, because I know he's definitely got some solid books out there too. So.
And I met him once. Actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he did a talk in New York when I was living there.
Oh, cool.
And it was really cool to sit and listen to him.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, that guy, he's He's kind of like Ben Greenfield. Both those guys kind of like will test everything and anything. But it's cool to have like human beings that are willing to put themselves through that because it's like everything in life is a test, and a lot of people like are scared and they're not going to try something new. And these guys are like, hey, I tried it. Here's the results, and then they put it out in the world, and they've created a huge platform through doing that.
It definitely it reminds you that failure is just a part of life.
Yes.
It's not necessarily marking you as doing badly.
Right,
it just is part of what you do and how you do it.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. Now, if you don't mind me asking, Lisa, is there maybe one guest on the Tim Ferriss or Joe Rogan podcast that you've really enjoyed listening to, just maybe off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, Sharapova.
Okay.
She was definitely one.
Now, is that
that's Tim Ferriss,
I know,
the tennis player.
Okay,
the tennis player.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, she was really interesting, very thoughtful, especially listening to like how her relationship with her family and friends drives everything that she does.
Right, wow.
And just like she's very grounded, and so it was really interesting to see that because in the beginning of her career, she was kind of always seen as like very talented, but she was also a pretty face, and like really being able to see the person behind the image was really interesting. So she absolutely, hands down, one of my favorites. That comes to mind. Joe Rogan, pretty much anything with Tom Segura.
Okay, cool.
Joe Rogan.
Who's that? I don't know.
Tom Segura?
Yeah,
he's a comedian. He's part of the Joe Rogan comedian crew.
Okay. Part of the Joe Rogan experience.
He and his wife, Christina, are just hilarious.
Okay, cool.
I always recommend listening to them.
Great. All right. Well, thank you for those recommendations for those two podcasts. So,
Yeah.
all right. So we're gonna kind of move on from the warm up and just jump into kind of like your backstory. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit with myself and the listeners, Lisa, kind of like where you grew up, kind of like just what the upbringing looked like, if you were involved in extracurricular activities, sports, maybe just share maybe a lesson or a takeaway from kind of those earlier years. That would be really cool.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Louisiana.
Okay.
In a town called Mandeville, which is just right outside of New Orleans proper.
Okay.
So that's where I grew up. Parents together. Extracurriculars, I played everything.
Okay, so super active.
Very, very active childhood. From a young age, I wanted to try everything. And, in the South, it was often, girls weren't always necessarily encouraged to do sports. And so I often found myself as the only girl on a team.
Okay.
Doing everything from softball to soccer when I was really young. Moving on, I went to an all-girls Catholic high school, so I ended up playing volleyball and basketball.
Cool.
And I was on the swim team. And then I gave up those to learn how to ride and train horses.
Okay, wow.
And so I did that for the remainder of like my high school.
Okay.
And I competed in like hunter jumper, learned how to the woman that I learned how to ride from, she would take horses that didn't do well on the racetrack, thoroughbreds, and then retrain them as jumpers.
Okay.
And so I would help and learn how to do that.
Okay, cool.
And that was really cool.
Yeah, so in regards to swimming, because I was on swim team like in elementary and stuff like that. What was your stroke, or which one did you enjoy the most?
Freestyle.
Okay,
I was really good on relays.
Okay,
because I was very fast right out the gate, but I never really had the stamina to do long distance.
That's cool.
Yeah, I tried track and field for a little bit, didn't last long.
Yeah.
I was like that quick dash.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So, do you have any like siblings or anything? Or
I do. I have an older sister.
Okay, an older sister. Okay,
she's
sweet.
4 years older than me, and she still lives back at home.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Down in Louisiana.
Yeah.
So, was there did you guys spend much time like in New Orleans then, or not?
Oh
really?
yeah,
Okay.
all the time. We were really only about 25 minutes away from New Orleans proper, and my father worked downtown for Shell Oil.
Oh, okay.
So we would be down there all the time.
Okay.
For whether it was like dinner, just meet him after work. When I actually was in college, I would drive to New Orleans from Baton Rouge all the time.
Oh, okay.
We would, Mardi Gras, all the festivals, Jazz Fest. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So is there anything like from your younger years, like in high school, or anything that you kind of like took away that maybe impacted your life in regards to who you are today?
Oh gosh. My parents were from all over the world.
Okay.
My dad was from Buffalo, New York.
Right.
Born and raised there, and he moved to Louisiana when he got a job with Shell Oil, but my mom was an Air Force brat.
Oh, okay.
So she actually grew up Tripoli, Libya, Egypt, a short stint in Charleston, and then finally finished high school and stayed in Louisiana. But one of the things that they made sure from a young age was that they always wanted us to travel. They would, anytime they could take us places, they would. Because I did live in a fairly small town, and one of the things my mom always wanted me to learn was that the world is bigger than where you are now.
Yeah.
And to remember that what's going on with your life now, there's so many other things, bigger things happening around us that we need to pay attention to and think about.
Cool.
And just really expose us to as many different types of cultures as possible.
Yeah, that's a super valuable lesson that your parents instilled in you, because I know for me personally, like growing up in a small town in Iowa, and being surrounded by very similar people and skin color and thinking and politics and religion and all that, it's like that's what you know.
Yeah.
But the world is so big and it's so beautiful and there's so many different perspectives out there, and like in order to like grow and continue to mature as a human being, like we need to have that exposure to other people and ideas, so that's super cool. And I'm sure that is something that is still inside of you to this day with the photography and different things that you're involved in. Now, in regards to the photography aspect of things, was there like a seed that was planted when you were younger, or did that not come along until in some of those later years?
Honestly, not until college. I was always interested in the arts. It was something I was actually, always kind of pretty decent at. But in high school, I was actually really interested in history and the sciences. And I was dabbling in the arts, and I liked that as well. So actually, when I first went to college at LSU, I enrolled in the graphic design program. But that quickly changed when I took my first photography class as an elective. And that's when the seed got planted.
So all right, so you go off to college, you went to LSU, right?
Yes.
Like the LSU Division I,
Louisiana State University.
The football powerhouse.
That's right.
Cool. So all right, so that's kind of where the seed of the photography got planted. So was it a class, or did you said something like you changed your major then after?
Well, I had enrolled. We have freshman year you have to take a certain number of electives, and I decided to take a photography class, just kind of for the hell of it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I was in class with this kind of the head of the program, the photography program at LSU, Thomas Neff. And I learned pretty quickly. It was something that I was pretty good at. Like technically, I understood it. It clicked, and I just fell in love with it. At the time, I was learning film. Digital wasn't really a thing in school then. Showing my age.
I'm right with you.
Showing my age, but so we were learning, and I just loved the art form and the feel of the tactile feel of you go and shoot, you bring in your film, you develop your own film, you develop the photos in the dark room. And I just loved spending all of my time there. From that point on, that's all I wanted to do. So I ended up changing my major my spring semester of my freshman year.
And you changed it to
photography.
Photography.
So it would BFA, Bachelor of Fine Arts in Photography is what it was officially called.
Now is that with like that concentration with that bachelor's degree in photography? Is that something that is only like with specific colleges, or is that kind of pretty common?
At the time, I think it's pretty common. There's an art department in every major public university, and photography usually is offered. I don't know now. I don't know for certain, but I think so. I know like the LSU department is still going strong.
I was just wondering because like I went to 2 private liberal arts colleges, and I didn't know if I can't really speak. I mean, I know there's an art department. I had to take an art class or something, drawing class to graduate from a liberal arts school. But I didn't know if that was something that those type of smaller schools offered. It was kind of you had to go like a bigger college. I didn't know.
I'm not really sure.
That's cool.
I think so. But
that's cool. So you kind of pick up the photography then at LSU. Overall, what was your college experience like? Was it a good time for you, or?
It was. I had a really good time. Being at such a huge university, when I joined the art program, it was much smaller, so it made it that you got to know each other a lot easier. You had this like built-in friend group that were taking the same class as you that you saw every day, and you had studios you worked in, you had studio mates, and so it really made it a really nice experience. And I had professors, Tom Neff and Jeremiah Arias were just absolutely instrumental in teaching me everything and giving me such a great foundation with photography.
Cool.
So I loved being at LSU.
Great. Did you ever make it to any of the football games? Or?
I had season tickets.
There you go. Perfect.
My uncle actually used to play for LSU.
Perfect. You got the family.
And my other uncle was in the LSU band. So
sweet.
Purple and gold
runs in the
deep,
family, huh?
Runs deep.
Runs deep. That's great. I know I have a guy that I went to. He was a senior in high school when I was a freshman, and then we went to the same college together. He was a strength and conditioning coach for a while down at Ole Miss.
And, nice.
So just being in that SEC.
I had some friends that went there.
Yeah, SEC environment is, when it comes to football, it's God
best.
for sure. So, but great. So, all right. So you wrap up college. Then what kind of unfolded then after college, and what were some of those experiences for you?
That's where things kind of took a turn.
Okay.
To say the least.
Okay.
I actually my last year of college. Something I guess I didn't mention. In high school, I was a classically trained pianist.
Oh, okay, cool.
And so I used to perform and play all the time. Yeah. And in college, it was something I did a little on the side just to make a little extra money at restaurants. They would have me just like playing the grand piano in the background.
Sweet.
And then I met, through the art department, of course, I ended up meeting a lot of musicians. And I would just kind of play around here and there with people. And these two guys that were part of the band Generationals heard about me and asked if they could like come over and kind of hear me like play some of their music. And so they did, and they asked me to be a part of their band.
Cool.
I was like, cool, sounds great. I don't have any plans after college yet. And I remember my first like real gig with them was South by Southwest.
Okay.
And I drove, I think it was like 4 o'clock in the morning, drove to Austin. This is the middle of my last semester.
Right, yeah.
Of course, because I don't have anything else going on.
Right, yeah.
Just finals.
Yeah,
Drove to Austin, played a show in this little bar at South by Southwest with them, and we got signed by a record label called Park the Van Records. I'm not sure if they're still around. And after I graduated, things kind of took off from there. We were playing shows all the time, and then we booked a tour over the summer. Cool. And so I went on tour. I left, I don't even remember, it's such a long time ago, exactly how long it was, but we pretty much traveled across the U.S. You know, we went up to Chicago and New York and a bunch of small towns in between, crossed the country, all the way, like, I remember we stopped in, like, Idaho, Montana, and then we started high up, we went, it was Washington State, and then made our way down the whole state of California until we wrapped around through Texas and everything back to Louisiana. So I was on tour for a while.
That's
and
pretty cool.
It was so much fun.
Yeah.
And I just played keys and did like backup vocals. But it was a wild trip. You know, I was broke as shit, but I loved playing, whether it was for 2 people or 2,000.
Yeah.
I had the best time. It was one of the best experiences of my life.
Yeah, that's cool, because you hear a lot of like college kids, you know, after they graduate, like they kind of like quote unquote take a year off and travel the world, and you kind of got to do that and play music.
Yeah, I got to play music for a lot of people. Got to play
really
a lot
cool.
of different festivals and big shows and small shows, I just loved being on the road. You know, we were traveling in like a 16-passenger van, and it was 5 of us crammed in with all of our equipment. And
so were your bandmates and stuff? Were they kind of like around your age, or were they older? Or
we were about the same age.
Oh, okay.
You
so
know,
you guys,
varying in a couple of years.
Yeah.
You know, Grant and Ted were maybe like 2 or 3 years older than me, but not by much.
But still just young.
Yeah,
and free.
And then the other 2 girls were my
life.
age. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Is there maybe like a kind of a takeaway from that experience that you would like to share?
Oh gosh, you know, taking risks.
Taking risk, yeah.
And not being afraid to fail. It's been a running theme in my life. But
that's come up the second time, but that's cool. That's beautiful.
It just, you know, leaning into that like unknown and not knowing where it's going to take you or how it's going to affect you, but just if you feel like compelled to do it, it's something that you should probably at least attempt to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's cool.
And and like I said, I remember so many cities and quiet moments and big moments and you know, that I'll never get anywhere else.
That's great. So was that just like one season of touring then?
Yeah. When we got back to Louisiana, we ended up parting ways.
Okay.
And I didn't really know what I was going to do. Because at the time I was like, I'm going to be a musician. I was like, not anymore. So here we are. So I started working in restaurants in New Orleans. Just because I was like, well, I got to do something. And I started working for John Besh and Alon Shaya, which are in Louisiana really big chefs. Actually, most people probably know who they are now. Alon Shaya actually just opened up a restaurant here.
Oh, sweet.
Called Shaya. It's amazing. And I started working for them, opened this restaurant, Dominica, and my goal was to work for 6 months and then get out of Louisiana.
Okay.
Because, of course, also, like, one of the things like my mom taught me was don't settle, go out, leave, get some life experience. Everyone says that. My mom's amazing.
Fire.
She was like, don't get married. You need to leave. You need to go experience the world, other things, other people, other places. And so I promised her, I was like, okay, I'm going to work for 6 months. And I would work like 60, 70 hours a week at this restaurant to save money. And I was like, I got to get out. Otherwise, it's just like this spiral of restaurant life.
Yeah.
And I did. I ended up moving to Asheville, North Carolina, which is actually, it was another band that was on tour with us, was based there. And they were the ones who were like, why don't you come check it out? Like, come visit us. I loved them. They were super nice guys. And I went. It's a small little mountain town, and it was so different from Louisiana.
Right.
I was like, you know what? I think this is a good kind of midpoint for me. It's a good place to just kind of like resettle for a little bit and see what goes on.
Yeah.
And so I did. I picked up and moved to Asheville for almost 2 years.
Cool. So during that touring experience, and then during this season of your life with grinding in the restaurants and saving and all that, was photography still like a part of your life, or did you kind of put that on the back burner?
Kind of put it on the back burner. Okay. When I was on tour, I had my camera and I would take pictures here and there.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that. It was fun. I was, taking pictures of my fellow musicians and whatnot. But it wasn't something that I was thinking was going to be a career at the time.
Okay. All right. So you move out to, where was it? Was
Asheville. Asheville, North Carolina.
North Carolina. Okay. So what did that kind of look like? Did you continue kind of working in the restaurants, or did you start something completely new? Or
I actually did a short stint at a graphic design firm. Actually, didn't like it, and then I had met some people that worked at the local coffee shop downtown, and I worked for them for about 9 or 10 months.
Okay.
And it was fun, coffee shop life, and then I switched back into restaurants for a little bit. And I was just, at that point, I was ready to leave Asheville. It was kind of gotten to a point where it was just a little too small for me. Yeah, and I was ready for a bigger city.
You were there for like a year or two? Or?
Year and a half.
Year and a half? Okay. So what's the next step then after
New York.
North Carolina? New York?
New York City.
That's a big jump.
Well, my father was from New York, so it wasn't completely out of it.
You've been there and everything,
I had been there a few times. We used to go upstate for like Christmases and whatnot.
Right.
But back in my head, I kept thinking, I was like, maybe it's something that I should do. And my father was on me to kind of figure out what I was going to do.
Right.
He's like, you're just kind of hanging out in Nashville right now. You need to figure something out. And so he told me he wanted me to apply to grad schools.
Okay.
Because at the time I was taking more photos in Asheville, of like musicians primarily, doing some fine art work as well, some conceptual work. I was playing around with printing on glass and doing kind of installation work, which was really fun. But so when he told me grad school, I was like, okay, this is something I could be interested in. I was like, well, it's worth applying.
Right.
So I applied to 5 graduate programs all across the country. 2 in New York, Parsons and Pratt. My dad went to Pratt, so he was gunning for that.
Yeah.
And then 1 in Portland and UT Austin. I don't even remember what the other one was, but I think Savannah College Design back in Georgia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I got accepted to Parsons.
Okay. And that's in New York City?
Yes,
or?
yeah.
Okay.
Parsons New School for Design, yeah.
Okay, I was going to say, it's got to be some sort of artsy...
People would know it. Have you ever heard of Project Runway?
No.
Okay, well, it's like a Bravo TV show that had its time back in the day.
Okay.
I think it's actually on again, but it was based at Parsons.
Okay.
And so that's how it had become famous. It had become famous because of that TV show. But seemed like a really good school, had a really good reputation. And when I got accepted, they gave me 2 weeks to move. And so my dad drove to North Carolina. We packed up my house, sold everything we could, and then he drove me to New York and dropped me off.
There you go, transition again, right?
Yeah, I had 2 weeks from the time they called me to the time I had to start classes.
Okay, cool. So now this is you're going to get your master's degree. What is the focus then? Is it 100% photography?
It is.
Okay,
yes.
Cool. So was it like a 2-year program, 3-year, or?
So it was 3, including summers.
Okay.
So I would only have 2 weeks off in between every semester.
Oh wow! So pretty intense.
Straight,
then, huh?
yeah, it's straight.
Yeah.
So it was like 2.5. I think it was like 2.5, almost 3.
Okay, cool. Now, like that experience with kind of that intense education in regards to photography, did that kind of like cause you to fall in love with photography more, or did it kind of give you maybe a little bit of a distaste for photography? Because I know like when somebody's like super passionate about something, and then you like, and it just kind of maybe becomes more natural, and it's more like kind of like a free spirited thing. But then once you're kind of forced to go in a certain route, that can kind of like leave that distaste. So what was kind of your experience with the educational part in regards to photography?
At Parsons, things kind of took a turn. My first semester, my father died unexpectedly.
Okay.
And so I started using photography as a way to really express my emotions.
Right.
And kind of make sense of my life, like ending in like this complete turmoil.
Right.
My life, my family, especially living so far away from my family. And so I kind of hated it. Kind of hated grad school a little bit.
Yeah.
Also, I was getting really frustrated with the program. I never felt like we were really being taught how to be successful, like financially stable, successful, have like a career.
Right.
It was all very conceptual. How are you creating this? How are you going to do it? What is it going to look like? But never, how are you going to make a living? How do you market yourself? What is the business side? I remember there being one class on it the whole time that I was there, and it really, really frustrated me. And I remember one of my final classes, I had a professor, I asked professor, I was like, okay, so we're learning all of this. And at this point, it was pretty clear I was being frustrated.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we're learning all this, but like, what do we do now? Where do we go from here? And his response was like, I will never forget this. He said, well, you just, get a job at a gallery as like a janitor or something. And, just like figure out how to get exposure from there. I was like, that's what I took out all of these school loans for.
Yeah, right.
At the end of the day, this is your answer. And I just felt done at that point.
Sure.
I met a lot of really incredible people from all over the world at Parsons. I remember feeling very inferior to my classmates because they were, from all over the world, speaking 2 to 3 to 4 languages, had all this like really incredible background. I had to teach myself digital photography because LSU didn't. Right. LSU was film, so I was like constantly feeling kind of a step behind.
Yeah.
And I learned more from my classmates than I did from the structure of the program.
Yeah.
And that I won't regret that. I do feel, and I've talked about this with a lot of people, that I feel like I should have dropped out and gotten my MBA.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I know, like my bachelor's degree is in exercise science, and my perspective now, I went to college to get a bachelor's degree because that's what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
And my mom and dad, they didn't go to college. I had an older half sister that went to college and things like that. But now looking back at that experience, I can go online and get a personal training certificate for like $600 and walk into a gym and be a personal trainer. I can walk into a gym with a bachelor's degree, and I can't, if I don't have that certification, I can't be a personal trainer. So it's like, what value did that degree honestly add to my life? Honestly, not a whole lot. You know what I mean? And as I listen to a lot of these high-level people on different podcasts, entrepreneurs and stuff, people that are worth millions of dollars, a lot of these people dropped out of high school, they never went to college, and I really feel like, kind of like your experience getting your master's degree is like, there are some, like if you're going to go be a doctor, like you have to go to college and stuff, but I don't believe college is for everybody, and I don't think it's necessary for everybody. In our day and age with social media and everything, like
yeah, I mean, I think there are definitely, college is for some people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not knocking it at all. I look back and like I said, like the people I met, the fact that it got me to New York, I won't ever regret that.
Yeah.
It was the same way like with my parents. Like my mom didn't finish college, but my dad did. My dad had a master's.
Yeah, right.
And he was working on his PhD later in life, and he believed in education being the gateway to being financially stable and having a career.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was doing what he wanted me to do.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Totally fine.
That's cool. So, and feel free just to say you don't want to talk about it, but was just kind of like with your dad kind of abruptly passing away, like kind of what was kind of the overall takeaway for you personally with that? Because obviously it was something that really sucked and hard for you. Did that kind of put you in kind of a dark place, or not necessarily?
Oh yeah. Well, it definitely taught me how to compartmentalize.
Right.
I think, it was just my mom and my sister back home, and it's part of my nature to just kind of take over, be the strong one, be the rock, and emotionally for the rest of my family to help them get through this and worry about myself later.
Right, yeah.
I remember when I went back to Parsons, they were like, it's mandatory if you go to therapy before you start classes again. I went to like 3 sessions. I was like, nope, I'm done. I'm good. I'm clean. I'm fine. I'm well adjusted. Clearly I wasn't, but it was important for me to make sure my family was taken care of before myself.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think I did that almost a little to my detriment a little bit. But it is what was needed to be done.
Yeah, yeah.
But it did. It was really rough. It was a big eye-opener to how and when I was going to move forward with my life.
So how did you personally in that time, Lisa, like just kind of like mentally, and you were going to get your master's degree, had a lot going on in your life. How did you kind of mentally push through that? Was it just kind of like put your head down and just grind through, or?
I was grinding through school,
yeah.
And I was also drinking a lot.
Okay.
To be honest, I was partying and drinking when I wasn't in school. I was going out and just kind of like making myself a little numb, probably. I would say if I look back on it, I definitely wasn't very healthy or good to my body.
Right. Yeah.
During that time, probably the year, about a year post, for the full year post. Yeah. I did have to go home to Louisiana for several months, but then when I got back, I was just like, school, have fun.
Yeah.
Focus on that.
Yeah. And kind of check out from.
I checked out. Yeah, I really. I was really
inside.
trying, and it would come through in my graduate projects.
Right.
Definitely, because like I said, that's how I was able to like express my feelings was through my work.
Right.
So my work kind of got a little dark conceptually, but that's how I was processing for a while. So not super well.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's those are experiences in life, and we all go through them. So.
That's actually how I ended up finding CrossFit, though.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that. That's a big
it's
thing,
actually so towards the end of grad school at Parsons, I started to take note of just how unhealthy I was and how I was processing things. And this guy that I had met was big into CrossFit. I never even really heard of CrossFit at the time, kind of here and there.
What's the time? No, I don't want to interrupt you, but what's the time frame? Is this like 2010 or something? Or
2013?
Okay. 2013,
2014?
Okay. Yeah, so CrossFit was, I think at that time, they were just getting on ESPN.
Yeah, 2012, 2013.
Somewhere right around
there. Around there, because I started grad school in 2011.
Okay.
Yeah, 2013.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
so go ahead and continue.
Beginning, CrossFit's like just starting to, be a little bit more publicized.
Yeah.
And this guy that I had met was super into it, and he was just ripped.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, I was very focused on eating super healthy and doing this CrossFit thing, and I'm over here like breathing hard going up a flight of subway stairs. And I'm like, I am tired of this.
Yeah.
I am tired of not being able to get up a flight of stairs without taking a second to breathe.
Yeah.
And I live in one of the most active cities
for sure,
in the U.S., in my opinion.
Yeah, New York City.
Which is constantly on the go.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like trying to remember, as a young age, I was super competitive.
Yep.
I was in all these sports, and I was like, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
So I looked up, just Googled CrossFit boxes, and all of them had like free intro to CrossFit classes, and I found. My dad taught me always do your research, so I picked the one that was the oldest and had the most certifications, and it was CrossFit NYC, which is the first CrossFit box in New York City.
Cool.
One of the oldest in the U.S. And so I went there for an intro class at 6 o'clock in the morning. I remember being like, what am I doing? And I was intrigued. I thought it was kind of cool. I liked the feeling of holding a barbell and what it could potentially do, and I just was like looking. This gym was massive, had unbelievable amount of members, and I would just look around and just see all these strong, beautiful, powerful women around me, and I was like, holy shit, I want to be them.
Yeah. And
I dove headfirst into it. So after every single day that I could post grad classes, I would hightail it to 7:30 p.m. CrossFit class.
Awesome,
yeah. CrossFit NYC.
So before your CrossFit experience and being introduced, before jumping into CrossFit, had you ever had any experience with like lifting weights, barbell work, or anything like that, or
one single elective class at LSU.
Okay.
I took.
So very little then.
Yeah, and I remember it being really fun. I loved it. Like we basically, the whole class was you showed up and you worked out.
Yeah.
And that was it. And I remember I was like, well, that class was really fun. Let's see what CrossFit's like. I was never really a gym goer. I just liked playing sports. I liked being outside. I liked riding my bike. And I also really enjoyed climbing, and I would dabble a little bit at the indoor climbing gyms in New York.
Okay.
And I kept thinking, at the time, like everyone would talk about how CrossFit will make you able to do the things in your life better.
Yeah, for sure. Functionally,
make you more functionally fit. And I kept thinking, I was like, well, maybe this will help me climb a little bit better. I can do more. Climb up subway stairs better.
Yeah. There you go.
And I fell head over heels in love with it.
Cool. Now, you mentioned like when you first kind of walked into the CrossFit gym or the box, you saw these strong women and everything, and that's something that I personally think CrossFit has done an amazing job with, is like empowering women through strength, through resistance training and barbells and all that type of stuff, because like I started lifting weights going into my 4th grade year. I've competed in natural bodybuilding and powerlifting, and like powerlifting, like back in the day, it was like you go to an event and there'd be like some pretty hard looking females there, and there was very few of them.
Yeah.
And here, like within the last like 3 or 4 years, I did just a deadlift meet. And there was flights and flights and flights of women. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I'm talking, like teenage girls all the way up, and it's like so cool to see. Yeah. So is that something that you have really appreciated about CrossFit, and that experience, is that it really has opened up the door for women to be more comfortable in the gym setting, throwing down with the men and things of that nature?
Oh, absolutely. I remember in high school, we would always practice at the Pelican Athletic Club in Mandeville, and then afterwards I would go to the gym, the indoor part of the gym, and be too intimidated to go into the weight room. Yeah. I was like always kind of intrigued, always kind of like looking around, but I would just stick to the machines.
Yeah.
And I remember there was never a girl in there, ever, anytime I looked. Right. And it was definitely not something that was ever really encouraged. Like the idea of having that even be potentially a career for a woman was not something that was ever talked about. It was something I never even thought could even be.
Yeah.
And so now looking back, and I see, especially with the teens competing in CrossFit, I was like, hell yes. Had I been introduced to CrossFit when I was a teenager, this unbelievable. I can't even imagine who I would be now.
Yeah.
Just really teaching women to be confident in who they are, what they're doing, how they look, and not being so worried about outside perceptions.
For sure, yeah. So with just your last statement there, and this is something I've been kind of wanting to ask as you've been unpacking your story, as a female and stuff, I know a lot of my previous guests, female guests, have talked about struggles with body image and just self-worth and self-confidence and things of that nature. throughout your life, has any of that stuff been a struggle and an issue with you?
Honestly, I think it always has been.
Okay.
It's something that is unfortunately kind of ingrained in you from a young age. Once you start seeing, I think it's something like when you pick up magazines, it's something that you're learning what is considered right and what is considered wrong. Mm-hmm. And so, when I was younger, I was very thin. I was very athletic. So when I was younger, I was never really that worried about it until somebody would point something out. Mm-hmm. And then I'd be like, whoa, wait, and it wasn't, honestly, it's been later in life that I've had more struggle. Obviously now I'm in my 30s, your body changes, all the time. And as I've gotten older, now I've been dealing with I put myself through a lot because I think I started CrossFit so late in life, and I went from CrossFit to training and competing in strongman as well. Wow. As I was putting my body through a lot of stress, and I never really knew how to handle recovery and what I needed to do for that. Was something that I just kind of would kind of put to the side, and it's now coming back to bite me in the ass. Yeah. And so actually lately is one of the reasons I'm on RP strength right now is because I've been dealing with injury after injury that's been keeping me out of the gym. My gym has always been that is my comfort zone. That's where I feel good. If I've had a shitty day, if I go and just back squat, I feel a million times better. I feel stronger. I feel beautiful. I feel worthy. And having that kind of taken away from me because of the injuries I've been dealing with has sucked. And so I've been struggling a little bit because obviously and having competed in strongman too, I definitely, and I don't do it anymore. I'm now that I live in Denver, I'm back to just doing CrossFit. I'm definitely carrying heavier weight and just not feeling comfortable in my body. And so that's something that I'm trying to kind of adjust and kind of relearn how to feel myself and recover and treat myself the way that my body should be treated. So
kind of what's one recovery method or tool have you found to be the most beneficial for you kind of in this process?
Right now, making time to go to restorative yoga. Restorative yoga or yin yoga. It forces you to hold really long periods of time in specific stretches. And that has been instrumental in my healing for sure.
Is there, obviously there is, but what's the place that you go to just to give them a shout out here in Denver? Or is it somewhere?
The River Yoga is fantastic, core power. I also go to One Yoga as well. Those are the main three that I go to.
Awesome. Yeah, because all of my guests on here are in the state of Colorado, and probably a lot of people listening are in Denver area in Colorado, so just if they want to check some of those places out.
Yeah, and in New York it was Moto Yoga. 100%. I like to do the really hot restorative yoga classes because it just releases everything.
Cool, it's amazing. Very cool. So have you then, you said you competed in strongman and things of that nature. Have you competed then in some CrossFit stuff or?
Just for, I did, what was it? Girls Gone RX here. The last time it was around, I had a little team with my CrossFit box, Driven to Conquer CrossFit, DTC CrossFit. Sweet. Give them a little shout out.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I was on a team of 3 other girls, and we competed in that, and it was fun. I'm not super interested in competing in CrossFit. I think I loved competing in strongman more. And I've actually been thinking about powerlifting a little bit.
Cool. Do it.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I like trying everything.
Yeah, why not? You only live once, so live it full, right?
Yeah, but strongman was probably my first love, sure.
So is there a certain or a couple certain CrossFit games athletes that you really admire or look up to?
Oh gosh. My photography picked back up when I started doing CrossFit. So I was I just don't want to get rusty. So I might as well just photograph some people in my gym. Why not? And I was doing it, and people were loving the photos to the point where my gym offered me, CrossFit NYC offered me a membership in exchange for photos every month.
Perfect.
I was like, great, let's do it. So I kept doing that, and it just kind of started to snowball into a career. Before I knew it, I was like, wait a second. Do I have a business? I think I have a business. I was actually making money, and I was shooting some local competitions. Other boxes were asking me to come shoot photos for them. And then I just got introduced to a couple different people, and I started getting pulled on to shoots with like supplement companies that sponsored CrossFit athletes. And Annie Thorisdottir was one of the athletes that I repeatedly photographed. And I think she's amazing. I love her.
I've heard her on interviews. She seems so down to earth.
She's incredible. You know, I've gone and had tacos with her. You know, she's just one of the people, she's like, I'll never forget, she was being interviewed, and I was just like taking pictures in the background, and somebody asked her, because at the time, like, paleo was the diet. And somebody asked her if she was like gluten-free. And without missing a beat, she goes, why? I'm not allergic. She's like, I'm going to go have tacos after this. And I was like, what? You are a normal human that also has 18 abs? Interesting.
She does.
Interesting. I loved being around her. I loved photographing her. She was just like very friendly and fun, and you know, it was easy to capture her personality.
Have you ever had any interaction with Katrin Davidsdottir?
I haven't. No.
Oh, okay. No. She seems like another sweetheart too.
Yeah, she seems lovely. Gosh, who else? Before Matt Frazier started winning the games, dominating the games, I photographed him. I went to Burlington, Vermont, and photographed him for a weekend, and he was great. He was super fun. Really like him. I like. Oh my gosh, why am I blanking? There's
How about
so many.
I know here locally there's like Matt Chan. He's a former CrossFit
he's really cool.
athlete.
I've never met him.
Okay.
I have some friends that used to work for him at his CrossFit box. He seems awesome. Oh my gosh, I'm like blinking on athletes. There's like a ton. There's a ton.
That's good. That's great. Okay, so before we kind of transition into where you're at today, you had mentioned something, and I just kind of want to see your thoughts on this. Like you said earlier, like in regards to going to get your master's degree, everything. You said that you were kind of like on your dad's path. Like you were kind of like walking down that path that your dad was really encouraging you to walk down. And you said, you know, you said it's like that's cool or whatever. But was there a point in time where you really kind of realized that and said, hey, like this is kind of like what my dad wanted me to do, but like I'm kind of my own person. I've got to do my own thing. Was there maybe an instance where you kind of realized that?
I don't know if I would put it like that. Okay. You know, my dad just always encouraged, you know, education.
Right.
And I'm forever grateful for that, and the fact that he put me through school and whatnot. But he always just wanted me to be happy with what I was doing.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it was more about being like, okay, like this is what he's just wanted me to be happy.
Yes.
What makes me happy now? And it was post-grad school, taking photos. Like I said, I've always been interested in people and their stories and what makes them tick. And so I realized, I was like, I love photographing athletes because I find athletes to be the most interesting out of them all.
Right, yeah.
You know, they're their own breed. They have their own things, and everyone's so unique in how they push through so much to get to where they are in their athletic careers. So that's what I just went full speed into.
Okay, cool.
I was like, I'm going to photograph athletes as much as I possibly can for whoever I can.
Cool. So being around athletes in general, but then also being around, you know, professional athletes, high performing athletes, is there maybe like a common trait or a commonality that you've photographed or experienced with high level athletes that you wouldn't mind sharing?
What I've noticed about them?
Yeah, like is there maybe like, is it the discipline, the focus, the routines, you know, just maybe something that a lot of these high level, high performing athletes maybe have in common that you've been able to see that maybe somebody that's watching them on TV wouldn't get to see?
You know, it's funny, it's not something I've really thought about, but the one thing that comes to mind is just how much they love training.
Okay, yep.
And the fact that training for them is fun. It is their life, it is their work, it is how they make money, but they just absolutely love they love training 4 times a day for 8 hours a day. You know, whereas like a lot of the average person is like 1 hour is enough. Right. We're good. Yep. You know,
an hour might be pushing it.
Until tomorrow, you know. But it's just the fact that it is their life. They know it's their life, and that they just find a lot of joy in it.
Yeah. Cool.
And I think that's something, you know, in the times where I find, maybe like training to be a little laborious and, I'm not liking it, just like to remember to like find what makes me happy about training.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That's cool. That's kind of what I was looking for, because, we see athletes, on the outside, but you really get to be on the inside and you have that different perspective. So that's cool. I appreciate you sharing that, Lisa. Yeah. So, all right. So you found CrossFit. You found really a passion in photography and specifically taking pictures of athletes. Yeah. So how has that morphed and how has that grown? Because you just said a little bit ago, like, hey, I might have a business here. So how does that expand and kind of explode? I mean, you talked about being with Matt Frazier and Annie, and now you're here in the Denver area, and I see on your Instagram you've got all these high level athletes that you're taking pictures of. How did all of that kind of come to be and explode?
Oh gosh,
to where you're at today.
To where I am now.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest turning points for me was when I was a friend of mine, James Quigley. He took a job. He left the New York CrossFit scene and took a job as a head coach at a Kuwait box.
Oh wow, okay.
And they were getting ready to host. It's pretty well known now, the Battle of the East competition.
Okay.
But at the time, it was like, I think this was only going to be the second one that they had put on, and it was going to be one of the first times like professional female athletes were going to be there competing in, like, Muslim professional female athletes were competing on the same floor as men.
And that's big time.
And that was a big deal.
Yeah.
And he called me, he was like, if you can get over here and talk your way into shooting this competition, you can stay with me.
Cool.
Because he was like, I just think maybe this is something you might be interested in. I was like, are you kidding? Yes. Like, go overseas to Kuwait and photograph this kind of historical thing and just meet people from all sorts of walks of life. I was like, sign me up, I'll figure it out. And I bought a one-way ticket to Kuwait because I couldn't afford a round trip at the time.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, so I'm assuming you kind of got your foot in the door over there.
So I showed up, he picked me up from the airport, and I was like, what am I doing? And he brought me to the gym. Obviously there was like a lot of people were flying in for this competition, and so it was like normal that strangers would be there.
Right.
And after I met like the whole staff that was going to be putting on, he introduced me. He brought me to the location that it was going to be hosted at, and he introduced me to the owner, like the head honcho, the head guy.
Cool.
I was so intimidated. I was like, hi, what's going on? And he was like, hi, I've heard a little bit about you. Who are you? Like, what are you doing here? And I was like, well, I want to shoot the competition. I was like, I don't care about being on the floor. I was like, I'm interested in the stories surrounding this competition. Yeah. That's what I'm interested in. I was like, you won't even know I'm here. Mm-hmm. And he looked at me. He was like, okay, you can have a media pass.
Sweet.
And he gave it to me, and I had free reign of the competition. I got to go wherever I want. I even like went and shot on the floor when I felt like it. I just got to play.
Yeah, that's cool. And that was kind of the catalyst for you.
It was me realizing that I could handle a large-scale competition.
Awesome.
That I could find those really interesting, intimate moments in between those like big time shots that are on the floor.
Right,
Sometimes what was more interesting was what was happening off the floor. And the people that I got to like talk to and tell their story and showcase that when I got back to New York was just it was amazing. And I was like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
I love shooting competitions like this. This is incredible. And I like telling these stories. And I actually was working with a nonprofit, Kismet. It was a Shares Non Global, which it was, I think is still going on now, but it was sponsored professional Muslim female athletes that were working towards gender equality in their home countries.
Wow.
So we had like Raha was the first Saudi Arabian woman to climb Mount Everest, was one of the sponsored athletes. We had a powerlifter from Pakistan, Olympic swimmer from Afghanistan, a professional bicyclist from Egypt, and I worked with them, and doing that competition in Kuwait is what opened the gateway for me to work for them.
Beautiful.
And so I would do things. I would go with them and talk at the United Nations, and just talk about the need for gender equality worldwide in sports and media.
Okay.
And so that became kind of like really my focus.
Okay. So the trip over to the Middle East for this competition, that was really, it sounds like the turning point career-wise for you, and you really realizing like this is my passion, this is what I love, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Is that fair to say?
Yeah,
okay,
it was.
Cool.
It absolutely was. And I remember my Instagram had like maybe 400 followers. Yeah. And I remember that was the first time CrossFit HQ reposted one of my photos.
Wow,
and it was of
cool.
two female Muslim athletes high-fiving on the competition floor, wearing hijabs. And it was such a powerful image, and they were just like huge smiles. They just lifted massive weights, and it was just really cool, to be recognized by what I considered the most important at the time to be recognized by. And also that I remember reading the comments, and I had a couple of female games athletes, like reach out to me on Instagram and say, hey, that was a really powerful image. Thank you for taking that. Cool. And I was like, wow, my work, even if it's just like what to me maybe one like random image out of 2,000 can really affect other people.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that just all around was like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Cool. So in the kind of introducing you, Lisa, and this, I got this from your Instagram. It says storyteller, and you just mentioned several times kind of those words, storyteller or storytelling. Or trying to tell a story, is that kind of like with pictures and things like that, photographs, is that really your aim, is to tell a story through pictures?
It has been for a really long time, but now that I work full-time for Lululemon, as you mentioned in the beginning, I've now started to work on my interview skills, because sometimes I feel like photos may not always be enough. And I'm really interested in how the written word can really elevate what you're seeing with these photos. So now part of my job with Lululemon is I interview and photograph people. I do long form interviews with people that are either work for the company in my Mountain West division, or just in the community, or ambassadors, and like really like dig in with them about who they are, what they do, and like how they empower the community around them. And then I also do like a photo shoot with them that can really express what they are telling me. Yeah,
and that's how I came across you is I think something that you had done with Amy Morrison, a previous guest on the podcast, and that's what you did, right? You took some pictures of her, and then you kind of just, you do like a little bit of a write-up about her? Or
yeah, so I actually sit down and record an interview with them. So I sit down with them, we sit for maybe like an hour or 2 hours, depending, and I ask them questions, and I just dig in with them about things that I don't know, and get them to like really express what it is that they love about their life, and how they share it with others. And then I take what I recorded and I write it. I take from that, and then I write.
I love it.
Write about it.
That's powerful. Now, what you're saying right there, and you mentioned Instagram a few minutes ago, like that to me, like that, it sounds like that's Instagram, because now, I mean, like the whole blog scene, however many years ago was like the thing, and then social media like Facebook came into be, and Instagram, but like what people I've heard talk about now is like, well, they don't have like a blog site, it's Instagram. They have their picture, and then they write like their blog or whatever after. So that kind of sounds like like what Instagram is. So how, and you're involved in social media with Lululemon and all that type of stuff here in Denver, how has like Instagram and social media changed the photography game?
That's a loaded question.
Well, yeah, because we're already up to an hour, but just like kind of generally, because obviously it's changed the game. I don't know nothing about photography, but I can take my iPhone and take pictures.
Sure, and for the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I think for one, as a photographer, back in the day, like especially when I was in grad school, to get noticed, to have your work seen, you had to go knock on doors physically, walk to every single gallery, every single place you wanted to shoot. Like conceptually, if you wanted to show in a gallery, you had to show up at their door and like beg them to talk to you. You had to show up at the magazine headquarters and get them to look at your portfolio. And now you can shoot for them if they come across you because of a tag, a hashtag, or somebody told them to look at your Instagram. And honestly, I get 97% of my clients from Instagram.
Yeah. So it's been a positive for you, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I have so many people that have reached out to me that are now like friends and clients that are like, I found you on Instagram. You photographed so-and-so, and I saw their picture on their Instagram and followed the tag, and I want to work with you. And it's been amazing. It's been a huge change. Sometimes we can get a little too self-obsessed with how it, I think, validates you and how good you are. It's been very easy for me to go down the rabbit hole of like seeing other photographers work and be like, they're better than me. Why am I even bothering? Yeah. But it's like having to like realize what you're doing, stop, take a step back, and realize the fact that you have 100 likes and that person has 2,000 doesn't mean shit.
Right.
Amen. And just stop trying to quantify like your worth based on social media. But it has overall been a very positive thing for my business.
Yeah, I love Instagram is my jam. That's how that's how I get 99.9% of the people on my podcast is Instagram. And I've actually, people like more, because I'm in my 30s too, like people our age and a little bit older that have had Facebook for a long time. I'm finding that's a pretty good way too to reach out to people, depending upon the age and stuff like that. But Instagram is, I love Instagram. It's good. So, all right, so we're gonna start wrapping things up here, Lisa. Just a couple more things I want to touch on. So if somebody is really outside of like just a smartphone and taking pictures like that, but if somebody's really has a strong interest in photography and really wanting to get into that scene and that game and kind of pursue that professional career in it, what's maybe one or two piece of advice that you could share with them just to kind of get their foot in the door or kind of get the ball rolling?
Number one is you need to practice. And you need to learn the technical skills of photography. Okay. So whether, I'm not talking about enrolling in a bachelor's program, but there are so many online options for learning the basic mechanics of your camera. Okay. And because in my opinion, you need to learn the rules of photography so that you can break them. Okay. And once you have that down, once you have those technical skills down, you need to... you can go forth and create what you want to create. Right. And you don't have to obviously stick to those. You can start to branch out and be more creative to how you shoot and develop your voice. But that's part of practicing is you need to develop your style. Yes. Everyone has to start somewhere, but to develop your style, you just need to keep taking photos or else you won't get any better. Right.
So, what is there like a specific camera? Like let's say somebody's just like, okay, they have an interest in photography. So, and they don't, obviously we can Google and YouTube and all that, but outside of kind of all that, like if you were going to give some practical advice about like, hey, a good starter camera would be what?
Oh, see, I get this question a lot and I don't like answering it, to be honest, because I believe that you can create on any kind of equipment. Okay. Whether it's a $5, point and shoot or a $5,000 DSLR, you can figure out how to create the work you want to create. Okay. And I don't believe in telling people they need to spend X amount of money to create good things, to create good work. Now, of course, there are some technical things. Like if you're shooting sports, you need something that's going to be fast. Like fast lenses, something that captures motion, that is something that is going to be necessary. But, something that I've always been taught that if you're going to put money down, it's more about the lens than it is your body, the body of the camera.
Cool.
But it's very personal, figure out what your budget is and go talk to somebody at Adorama Camera or B&H, the people that know the equipment better than anybody. Right, yeah. Tell them what it is that you are looking for, and get their first suggestion, their second, their third, and their fourth. And then just compare it and see what's going to work for you. The other really amazing thing that I've learned, something that I've done, is I've changed camera bodies a couple of times. I started in Canon, now I shoot Sony. Okay. But there's a lot of rental companies. So before you throw down a bunch of money, rent it for the weekend or a week and see if you like it.
Okay, cool.
Because that's going to cost a fraction of what buying the camera is going to be.
Very
So
cool.
that would be probably my advice, is go rent what you think you want and see if it's worth it.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So is there an event or an athlete that you have not been able to shoot yet that you would really, really love to shoot?
Oh. Well, I just shot TFX in Austin. So that was like a big, awesome thing that I was really excited about. I'd love to shoot the Dubai fitness competition.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That would be one. And the one going on right now, the Granite Games. I'd love to shoot the Granite Games.
Yeah, I've been there before.
Have you? Yeah, I've had tons of friends. I have friends competing this weekend. I've always had friends competing, and I've loved to go do that. And of course, the CrossFit Games.
Yeah,
you know, I've shot regionals a couple of times, but I've never shot the games, and I think it would be really fun, especially with all the changes that have been going on.
Yeah, no,
I think it would be a really, really interesting time in the next couple of years to now go and be on that media team.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
So what is the power in pictures?
What is the power? I think it's how can it can affect how you feel. I think how photos can tap into your emotions and make you rethink some of the, like your opinions. It can change your opinions, can change your point of view, your worldview.
Yeah.
I think that's the power of photos.
Cool. Yeah. Very, very good. All right. So how did you end up, because we've kind of left off in New York City. How did you end up in Denver? If it's not, if you don't mind sharing,
super
it's
easy.
not too long.
No, not at all. So I'd been in New York for almost 10 years.
Okay.
And I was already kind of looking for a change. And I had done a bike ride called Ragbri.
Yeah, that's in Iowa. That's where I'm from.
That's where my boyfriend's from.
Okay, cool.
I did Ragbri. And actually, long story short, the nonprofit Cheers Non-Global had taken those athletes and had them ride Ragbri.
Oh, cool.
And so that's how I found out about it.
Uh-huh.
Through a friend of mine who also worked for the North Face, and I worked for the North Face for a little bit. And he told me about it. And the following year in 2016, I decided I wanted to try it. And I am not a biker of that level. I was like, sure, 500 miles, no big deal, I'll do it. And long story short, I joined this team, and my now boyfriend is on that team. That's how we met. We met on Ragbri, and we were doing long distance for about a year and a half.
Okay.
And he didn't want to move to New York. I didn't want to move to Iowa. And
I don't want to move back to Iowa either. So
I mean, I love Des Moines. I actually really do.
Is that where he's from?
He's from Des Moines.
That's where I was born,
yeah,
so.
Des Moines is great.
I don't want to move back. But
you know, at the time I was just like, I want to live somewhere where both our careers can thrive.
Yeah.
And so we picked 5 different cities, and Denver ended up winning.
There you go.
And he got a job with Comcast, and
Cool.
I was like, well, I'm a sports and fitness photographer. If I'm going to work anywhere, Denver, outside of New York, Denver seems like a pretty good option.
Yeah.
And I was really interested in getting into the outdoor scene. Like, another one that I really want to shoot is the X Games.
Cool.
That's high on my priority
Winter
list.
and summer? Or?
Yes, both.
Cool.
All of it.
Isn't the winter ones are up in Aspen?
Yeah, it's in
usually, right?
Aspen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's accept the job. Let's go to Denver. And next thing I knew, it was January 5th, and last year we were here.
Cool. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
So is there maybe, and I got two more questions. This is the second to last one. Is there so for the ladies out there, is there anything that you would like to share with them? Maybe just a life experience that you've gone through, a life lesson that you've learned, just to really encourage and to build up the lady listeners.
Oh man, so many. Don't stop what you're doing. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't. You know, I spent so many of my first couple of years as a sports photographer having male photographers have the nerve to actually even take my camera out of my hands to show me how it worked.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, I have 2 degrees in photography, but they didn't know that.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I had people ask me whose assistant I was when I was the lead photographer on a photo shoot.
Right.
And I just had to remember, I was like, fine, let them feel that way. Let them think that way. I just had to keep going, keep pushing. And I'll never forget the very last event, sports event, CrossFit sporting event that I did before I left New York. I was the lead photographer, and everyone knew my name and everyone knew exactly why I was there.
Yeah.
And that was so satisfying.
Cool.
Because I never gave up. I never let other people tell me what I deserved or where I deserved to be. And so just remembering just to keep going and just block out the rest of the noise. Great. I think that is really, really important. Yeah. And pick up a damn barbell.
There you go. I like it. That's good. And that goes for the guys too. Those are words of wisdom for the ladies and the dudes. Yeah. So, all right, last question, Lisa. Yeah. What sets your soul on fire?
Other people and their stories.
Cool. Awesome.
Just having people let me in and be vulnerable and letting me tell their stories is it's such an honor. Mm-hmm. And I love doing it, and I love the people that allow me to do it, and it's what drives me to keep doing my work every day.
Great. Awesome. All right, so Lisa, that wraps up the podcast. Before I kind of go into my outro here, mm-hmm. If somebody wants to reach out to you, if they're just kind of vibing with what you've been sharing today, how can people get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of me on my social media. My main one is my Instagram, at Lisa Haefner Photo. It's LaSaHaefnerPhoto. Also my email, which is lisahaefnerphoto@gmail.com. Those are the best ways to get a hold of me, and I'm pretty quick at responses.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Lisa, for your time today and for sharing your story. Absolutely. So, listeners, thank you so much for hanging out with myself and Lisa today for the 127 Fit podcast. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me on Instagram. It's at 127fitness. Facebook is at Quentin Vars. And then if you would just please subscribe, and most importantly, leave a 5-star review if you're finding value in this podcast and the guests that I'm bringing on. That would be great. If you think you'd be an awesome guest, or if you have some friends or acquaintances or coworkers that you think would be an awesome guest or guests on the 127 Fit podcast, just send me an email, 127fit@gmail.com. And then I just want to encourage everybody out there, if, again, you're finding value in the guests and in this podcast, just to repost this on your Instagram stories, Facebook stories, things of that nature. And then I just want to encourage you to use the hashtag #BeSomeoneToFollow. Would love to just kind of get a little bit of a following and a group going behind that hashtag. And per the usual, I will leave you with Proverbs 24:10, which states, "If you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small." This time until next time, I will catch you guys later.